Oh my word, my air conditioner is making crazy sounds. I guess I need to get the AC guy out here to do a little Kmeyer. I'm getting ready to explain why I'm so happy today. Um, if you could do the YouTube things, like, subscribe, whatever, that would be fine. But if you think I suck and you want to unsubscribe, do that too. Um, these are just my opinions based upon my years in Quiverfull and other religions. Hey, Jan. Don't bully anybody I talk about, please. No Duggar bullying, not even any without a box of Kleenex bullying. We don't do that. We don't like that. Yeah, so today I want to talk a little bit about the whole process of decision making in Quiverfull in general. Hey, Nitwit. Hey. I am happier right now than a bear with a honey hive, or if it were to start raining $10,000 bills. I am just having the best day ever right now. And it has to do with decision making. Hey, Carolyn, gendered decision making, which you see a lot of in Quiverfull, because you've got Bill Gothard's umbrellas, you've got God and Jesus, you've got husband, father, you've got wife and kids on the bottom with no ability to make decisions at all or to give consent or anything else. Those of you who've been following me for a while, you know I've been verklimping and beating my gums about the situation with our car that happened not almost 2 weeks ago, where our 19-year-old Honda CRV died finally. Hey, Bliss, good to see you. And we ended up selling it. There was some confloption with my husband's idiotic evangelical friends who created some drama over the thing, and he was listening to them. And then we sold the car, and now we have our friend's jalopy that he doesn't want us riding around in, but we've been riding around a little bit in it. Every time we've gotten in it, something is broken. Every single time. Last night was no exception. We just put a new starter on it last week, and the starter's not working now. So it's time to do something. And we've gone to the dealerships and looked around. And have you seen the documentary on Netflix called Our Father? They reference Quiverfull. I have not yet, but only because we only have one Fire Stick. It's in here. And the husband likes to watch, God almighty, Tucker Carlson in the evenings. And he'll sit there and hog the one TV with the Fire Stick. So I haven't had a chance, but I think I'm going to trick him. I'm going to move the Fire Stick out in the living room so I can watch season 2 of The Way Down, and I can watch Our Father and a couple other things I've written down I need to watch. I will watch it. I'll try to watch it. Maybe tonight. That might be a good one to tell the husband. We're watching this. This has to do with YouTube and my book and blah, blah, blah. So we have to watch this. The Gwen Shamblin one, I'm eager to see where they went with this, because like I said, every time I've been approached to possibly say something in a documentary about Gwen, the question that keeps popping up is, did somebody bump her off? Gwen Shamblin, there was a documentary series, Jan, that happened last year called The Way Down. That was season 1. There were 3 episodes, 3 maybe, and this year there are 2. She and her husband died the last day of May last year when their plane went down. And documentarians keep asking me, do you think somebody killed them? It's like, the only thing that killed him was evangelical hubris, which is not what any documentarian wants. They want to hear, oh yeah, they had so many enemies that somebody bumped them off. I watched some of that, Bliss. Hey, that Amber Chick and Celine. Some of that is hard for me to watch because it's very triggering. A good example of that is not religious, it was super triggering, that I had trouble watching, was Tiger King. I had to watch season 1 and season 2 in tiny little bites because it was extremely just very triggering. And because what was going on there also had some very CULT like things. I think her husband thought he could do no wrong. Carolyn, yes. And she had encouraged that. And we're about to talk about that stuff too, because in so many of these Quiverfull families, The husband makes all the decisions. He rules the roost. And as a woman, you're given no option to have an opinion. Well, we're getting ready to buy a car, and we looked at some used ones. We looked at a couple of new ones. And my husband said, "What do you think?" So I said what I thought. He said what he thought. And now he's talking to some of his friends. I'm talking to my friends. And guess what? We're getting a brand new car. We're getting a new car. The last time I bought a brand spanking new off the dealership car was 1981. I bought a Fiat X19. It was a horrible disaster. The first 6 months I had it, it was in the shop probably every other week. So I have stuck with used cars since then. So his friends, some of his friends, and myself, one of his friends actually, and myself talked him into it. I pointed out, I'm getting ready to turn 62 in mere days. He is 70 now. What are we doing rolling around a foreign country with an old car that's going to break down? The other thing is the way cars are sold here is so different than the States. There's no Carfax. There's no telling if a dealer is right or wrong about a car. There's no way to get a history. And I see gringos get taken all the time here with used cars. We brought our old daughter's car over, her old Honda CRV, rather than buy a car or bring a newer one. There's a crazy new IFB watchdog called Maria, and she's been giving false information about me. Like I'm against once saved, always saved, I advocate for fornication, which is not true. Celine, if you're saying the truth about things, there are always going to be people that come at you. I'm going to talk about that a little later too, because I'm experiencing that on Twitter. But the difference is I'm kind of like, no, I don't care about that. Say your stupid falsehoods, attack me, say what you want. I don't really care. I've just reached that point in my life where I'm giving 0 F's about a lot of things that used to bug me in the past. And being part of a faith community at all, or having any kind of faith, is to open yourself up for that. Bliss, I saw the other day that somebody had made up a similar account to yours. And they were answering like you, but very rudely and various. That's really frustrating. I haven't had that yet, but I have had some really foobar things happen. That's why I went ahead and started Jerks for Jesus back when I was doing Patheos, because so many fundamentalists would come after me in the stupidest ways possible. And it's always dirty words, curse. And it was like, nope. I told her, when you're an old hag who's been unmarried and uncovered, well, you're an old hag that's unmarried and uncovered, and that shut her up. Celine, that's a brilliant one. Yeah, I don't have the energy to care what anyone else thinks about me or anyone else. Making my own decisions about folks is so much easier. That Amber chick, that is the truth of the matter. I'm not going to be ugly to these folks, mostly, but I'm not going to engage at all with most of them. It's just too time consuming and just too ridiculous. So we're getting this new car, and I thought about it later after we started talking about this last night, because we're going today to look at new cars again. And we have some differing thoughts on that. I have said, get one of those Chinese ones. They're inexpensive. They seem to be well made. If we sell it in 5 years when the warranty runs out, and then turn around and buy another car, big deal. If we don't like it, big deal, we'll sell it. I agree, Amber. When is someone going around the chats and comment sections masquerading yourself? It hits a little bit different. Yes. Celine, he wants to get a Nissan, a brand new Nissan, Toyota, or Honda. I am thinking that some of the Korean cars and some of the Chinese ones they have here, or even a new Hyundai, would be good. I don't really care. I used to love European cars. That's why I had a Fiat, Volkswagens, and Mercedes for some years, because I always liked European cars. But now, air conditioning runs great. We're golden. I just don't want to have to be going to the shop every time, and buying a new car is a way around that. It's crap behavior, honestly. No kidding. And there are some communities. Oh, Nissan Road, we were looking at those too. Oh, Celine, that would be nice. A CRV with a remote starter. So I'm not really sure. We're starting the new car process again today. So But the thing is, that could have never happened in our old Quiverfull days if I was fully submissive, which I struggled with that because it was not a good fit for either one of us. There's some things that I'm just better at than him. There's some things he's better at than me, and they aren't exactly gendered items. He's awesome at washing the dishes. I'm awesome at doing the taxes. I mean, and taking out the trash. So who is to say what is a gendered and non-gendered role? So our old church, people did that a lot, and then they humble bragged about it. And something as major as a car, as a woman, you were allowed to have an opinion. You just weren't allowed to say it. I have a Nissan Versa hatchback, my mom's old car. I fixed the air conditioning. Celine, I've looked at a couple of those too. Hey, Danielle. I like those too. I would be happy with that. So this could have never happened in our old Quiverfull world. I mean, even when I wasn't very submissive, because the way it is in this super gendered biblical roles world, the man makes the final decision. The woman gets little to no input in that. You can have all the opinions of the world you want and keep them to yourself and not say them out loud, especially not foist them on your husband. Even back then, when we were in the thick of that, my husband would ask my opinion on everything, and I would tell him, because there are times when I would have an opinion and say, hey, wait a minute, I don't think we should do that. Toyota Corolla S, it's been my favorite car. I've heard good things about that too. So I am open to just about anything where that goes. I need a car that's an SUV to survive the New England winters with heated leather seats. Celine, I hear you. I need a four-wheel drive here, and it needs to be an SUV. Why? Because I have a tendency to take back roads, and back roads here are not paved. I got stuck in our Honda one time in the mud. Our four-wheel drive Honda CRV. I got stuck in the mud, and I still look back upon that as one of my more interesting adventures here. The car had to be towed out. It was pretty crazy. Oh, that's really awesome. I've not had a wreck in years, knock on wood. So the decision-making process is that the man can make, oh, I don't know, Celine. I don't really know on that. The man can make all the decisions in the world, no matter how stupid it was. You as a woman, if he didn't ask for your opinion, you couldn't give it to him. You were just to smile and let him have his way, whatever it was he wanted to do. And it could lead to some really weird places. I mean, look at the Dries and Josh Duggar thing. There was some circumstances in Debbie Pearl's book, Created to be a Helpmeet, where she talked about the exact same situation as the Josh Duggar situation, except that instead of it being CP, it was about a man who had SA'd his own children. Debbie Pearl said the only Quiverfull response to that you are allowed to have is that you are allowed to cooperate with the police and turn your husband into the police. Everything else, you have to stand by your man, just like your Tammy Wynette, and wait for him coming out of prison, visit him in prison, fill his prison books with whatever money he needs, bring the children to him to visit him, his own victims, yeah. And then when he gets out of prison, if he gets out before the children have turned 18, then Debbie says you place the children elsewhere and you welcome the husband back home with open arms. You don't beat him up for what he's done. You don't criticize it. You don't say, why would you do that? You don't do that. You just welcome him back home with a smile and take care of him anew. Well, let me tell you something about that. Screw that. Screw that hard. Even my old poisonous Quiverfull church, when that exact scenario happened, our pastor helped the lady obtain a divorce, which would be the only response I would think that'd be halfway normal. So you get rid of your innocent kids to welcome back your pedo husband. Yes. Yes, Chris. They preach that in some more extreme Quiverfull. And Debbie Pearl, anything that I think that some of the female enforcers, not all of them, Debbie Pearl, Lori Alexander, and a couple others that double down on the worst stuff, do so because they're in very unhappy marriages. And rather than admitting, hey, I'm not happy, this is not working, they double down on the worst stuff. And I've seen this happen in Quiverfull, in my old church, again and again and again. So they punish the kids. Nobody, yep, they do. They punish the children in their own weird way. Can you imagine bringing the children who are the victims to the prison to visit the husband? Hell to the no. That would not happen with me. Hey, nobody. So that would never happen for me. And I think anybody that does that is foolish, regardless of what Debbie Pearl has to say about this. So I think a lot of these female cultural enforcers have very miserable marriages, and they want to push that misery on everybody and make their lives so holy, when they're not holy. The holy thing is kind of an inside joke, because when I was on worship teams in various churches, when you sing, you can sing holy, or you can sing holy. It's a little easier to do holy. So I always say holy now because it's funny to me. So they're trying to pass off their own toxic relationship is God's idea for a good relationship, which is not even close. And nobody wants to give women the power to say no, or have any kind of authority, any kind of permission to say no to anything, any kind of anything to say no. I think that's a very bad idea. And I have seen in my old church so many different times where men have made just horrible decisions, and the women in their lives did not have the ability to say no, or say, hey, maybe you shouldn't quite do that. Maybe you should think about doing X, Y, and Z. Or my favorite, Celine, I'm not sure who that is, but I've heard tell of a couple people like that. There's been some, horrific ideas I've seen people push and said, well, I can't say anything about it because it's my husband. And Debbie Pearl says that when your husband screws up and makes wrong decisions and you guys get all twisted up and things happen, that that it's perfectly fine to think I told you so, but you can't say it. But you can take comfort from knowing that you were right in the first place. And I think that's just horrifically wrong. That's just me. There are times when my husband has saved me from making stupid decisions. There's days when I've saved him. It just really depends. I feel there's a lot of racism in those groups, and I'm just going to say it. Celine, absolutely. I always got the biggest kick out of voting. What is his last name? Botcham? Voti, however he pronounces it. I haven't had anything to do with him or seen him in a long time. He was an African-American gentleman that was part of the whole IFB, IBLP. He was one of the rare ones. He was like their token guy, their token racist, racial representative, the one that they let in. And that's pretty much, look him up. He's pretty awful. Sounds like the women think that's how it's supposed to be too. How sad. Yes, they do. They do think that. If they don't get out, how will they ever know the difference? They won't. And they'll think that these things they're thinking are ridiculously wrong, that they're evil, and take every thought captive. That's sin, that's thought sin. They really think that. And it's very sad because you're looking at this going, that's not how any of this works. And a lot of them don't get that sometimes you're better off just using gentle persuasion. It's like with this car situation. He asked my opinion. I gave it to him. I gave it to him straightforward. non-emotionally, and not going, we have to do this right now. I just said, yeah, I think that having a new car would be a better decision for us because XYZ. We're old, we're older, I don't think we need to be fooling with car repairs all the damn time like we were before, and just all these different ideas. But you can't do that. My husband can sew, iron, and fold clothes way better than me and doesn't mind. I told his mom that I hate that stuff. Awesome, Danielle. My husband washes dishes better than I do. Now I am now washing more dishes than I have before in the past. That he used to wash some of them, and I'm okay with that. I just don't like it. I'm not good at it. I have to rinse 3 times. I love doing yard work. Me too, nobody. I like working in my garden. I like that. When my health is good, I like being out there pulling weeds, edging, doing all of that. I'm looking out right now, and I really need to get out there and weed my vegetable garden. I have some things I need to trim up and other stuff, but I like doing that stuff. I just have to make sure my hair is way up on my head. I'm covered it with a scarf because I've come back with some exotic things in my hair from being out there. Um, so gender roles really suck in that regards. And if you're a woman, they leave you voiceless because there's absolutely no way to get your opinions across. I know so many former Quiverfull mothers that I knew, well, not formal, some of them were still in it, that their idea of punishing the husband or having bad negative feelings and all that is to slam around while they're cooking, rearrange his sock drawer so he can't find anything. Just really passive aggressive stuff that could all be cut off at the knees if women had the freedom in that religion to express their opinions about things. I know of one Quiverfull mother whose husband kept making the wrong choices with jobs, and he was making lots of, career ending ideas, including doing things like making creepy statements about gender roles until they did fire him for sexual harassment that was interpreted as sexual harassment. He claims to this day that he did not mean that. He ended up killing somebody. He ended up going in and straight up murdering one of the local vineyard owners where I live, and felt no shame for it because he said, I have to be able to support my family. So that's what I mean when I say sometimes the worst things in life are justified by belief. Between all of the infidelity I witnessed, all of the other just not so good things, the people were rapping in Bible. My husband's mom taught him well too. That's nice. My father raised me to do the guy stuff too, which is why I can use the skill saw like a champ. My father taught me that stuff. Same thing here. I'm not even a second wave or whatever feminist, but I want the right to make my own decisions with the Holy Spirit's help. I don't need someone policing me all the time. Celine, amen. Yeah, especially when you're doing crazy stuff in the yard and you might end up with God knows what in it. I've picked pretty much any kind of leaf or detritus out of my hair and or bugs. So we got to cover our heads is what I've discovered for that. That's the only time I'll willingly cover my head. My mother taught me to use a chainsaw. That is awesome. I had to learn on my own. And I don't have a chainsaw here, and I miss it because there were times when I was feeling feisty. I was getting pissed off with someone for dumb reasons. And I learned that when I had that dumb reason, anger come on, to go out in the yard and use the chainsaw or the electric trimmer to go ahead and just start chopping stuff up because it was very fulfilling at that time. I find a sudden backlash against women in the States, but men weren't complaining about it when they got free sex. You cannot put the genie back in the bottle. Celine, that's exactly right. You can't. And it's not an either or situation. It's not either you're a fully submissive wife doing the head covering thing, doing this, doing that, smiling and cooking, or you're some kind of raging feminist running out there having sex with everybody. There's a whole lot of middle ground out there, a whole lot of middle ground. Christophan, I used to get that in Culpeper because I was out there trimming my bushes or trimming trees because I had a small orchard in the back. I was using my chainsaw to resculpt the trees. I sometimes get that. They say, why are you out there? And then your son is mowing, not your husband. Say, well, I always said, my husband is a long commute to and from DC every day. He likes to rest when he's off. So it's just easier for me to do it. I don't tell them because I like doing it. I'm good at it. And he's not good at it. I'm not going to expose him in that way. I'm far from a promiscuous woman. And the reason why I didn't go very promiscuous was because I had freedom and didn't think I was chained up. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. Yep. My neighbors used to say that. Absolutely. Everybody has opinions about what we should be doing as women. Now, notice they rarely go after men for things doing that they think are wrong. But if you're a woman, it is open season on everything you do. I mean, you just have to look at some of the pushback that YouTubers get, female YouTubers get from the male YouTubers and male commenters. Some of it is hysterical. Some of the good Christian patriarchs that have tried to tell me what to do, some of the craziest stuff. And like I said, I move those guys to Jerks for Jesus because it is just, it's comedy, particularly when you add in the incels. Some of those guys are, it's like, I can see why the only vagina you were ever near was when you were flying out on one of them being born. And it's just funny. Males get pushback if they try to do housework or have an emotion. Nobody, you're right about that. That's about the only way. And when I was writing in my book about everybody having affairs, about the huge pile of affairs, the men very seldom got more pushback than, hey, don't do that. The women were like, WHORE of Babylon. Oh, and shamed and everything else. But the men, it was more like a tiny little, hey, don't do that. He's like, men on the manosphere, women don't want you. I'll have to look at that because I get a kick out of that. Sometimes my husband and I have laughed over some of this stuff that's going on in Quiverfull now that we've been out long enough. And lately, like I said, all the long car rides to and from R&L, looking at cars and things, has given us lots of time to discuss this crap. Beginning of the end for me, beginning of the end for him. I still cannot get over some of the crap we were told. Even I gotta say, I like this one of mine says, you need to take more vacations and learn how to relax. Yeah, you think so? Because in Quiverfull, women do everything. And here it says, you have committed adultery and infidelity. Your wife is sleeping with a guy named Walter or Wally. Neither one of us were having an affair. So that's just ridiculous. That's all just the most ridiculous, made up BS. Danielle, no, I haven't found a car yet, but we're having discussions about that. I have to explain a little bit about Costa Rica. They don't have Carfax here. It's hard to find the history of any car. It's a crapshoot. I told my husband after we saw a few cars and I saw that we could get a decent Chinese-made SUV for $20,000. I said, we should do that. Because if you're buying a brand new car with a 5-year bumper-to-bumper drivetrain and all these other warranties, you're ahead of the game here, I think, because so many times I've known so many people to buy cars here and they've been broken down, constant repairs. The one that our buddy Bruce is storing with us that we're supposed to be free to use, but he said, don't use it. Every single time we get in that car and flip the switch, something breaks. So we haven't found an exact car yet, but last night my husband said because of the problematic nature of buying and maintaining used cars here that we're going to buy a brand new one. And I was really surprised to hear him say that. I had made the appeal to him when he asked me what my opinion of all the cars was. I said, look, the kind of car we're looking for is going to run $15,000 to $18,000. Okay, for $2,000 more, we can have a brand new car with a great warranty on it. So he's talked to his friend Dimitri, who runs the language school here that he works at, and Dimitri said, "Why do you think I bought a brand new car 6 months ago?" Because of that exact thing. He started telling Jim about all the times he bought cars and they broke down, and how he found out some of the cars had serious flaws only after he bought them. And our mechanic is working us hard to buy this older model car. It's an older car that I'm comfortable with. The car is 16 years old, and he wants quite a sum of money, almost $10,000 for it. And I'm not sure it's worth that. I'm not sure we're not going to get something that's going to break down. So I think that having a new car for us, where we are in our lives, where we are in our ages, is probably makes more sense. I'm going to turn 62 next week, and he is going to be 71 on his next birthday. So a new car makes more sense for us right now. And I told him, I said, if we buy it and we don't like it, we can always resell it 6 months or a year down the road and start again with something else, because cars here do tend to hold their value. There's not as much depreciation as there is in the States, but I don't want to have to constantly be paying for repairs. As it is, we've got Warner, our mechanic, coming out way too many times with that stupid car the guy is storing with us, where he said, I'm not paying for any of the repairs. Nobody, I am hearing that too, because that was one of the things that we discussed. We discussed buying a new car, used car in the States, and having it shipped here, which is a possibility, but it's not a good one because it's a lengthy process to ship a car here. It's an expensive process, and then you have to pay the aduana, which is the taxes on the stupid thing when you import it, the importation taxes, and they're quite expensive. We brought our, let's see, we got here 5 years ago. Our car we just sold is 19 years old. So it was 14 years old when we imported it. And they hit us with $6,000 in import taxes on it. $6,000. We didn't pay anything near that when we bought it from our daughter after she bought a new car. We didn't pay anything near that for it. And it wasn't worth anything near that. But I'm hearing from everybody in the States how short they are on cars and how impossible it is and how the prices have gone up. So the prices in the States are starting to come in line to what we're paying here. It's pretty outrageous, I think. So the best thing for us is, I think, to buy the new car. And I told him that once, and he must have heard, because after talking to Dimitri and hearing yet again how hard you can get screwed on cars here, he changed his mind about it and said, let's get a new one. Like, as his friend Tom likes to say, why are you stockpiling your money? Are you stockpiling your money to leave it to your kids? Use some of it and enjoy yourself in your senior years. And I'm a believer of that now. Not that you leave your kids empty-handed, but you don't have to script and save and count every nickel. I did that during our Quiverfull years. That was the only reason we were able to put our kids through college, is because I practiced extreme thrift for some years. And that helped out a lot, but it sucks. It sucks so bad that when you live like that for a number of years. And we got out of that when we left, and then I had to turn around and do it again because I had 2 kids in college, and just the day-to-day living expenses, living on campus, living off campus, it's just outrageous. We just couldn't afford it any other way unless I was working a pile of jobs myself and counting every nickel, squeezing the pennies. And there are Quiverfull mothers for whom that is a daily occurrence. They roll around in old scrap iron type vehicles because it's the best they can afford. Everybody buys used to save the difference. Your kids want you to enjoy your life more than we want your money. I know that, nobody. I know that. And we need to have a decent car. There are some things in this life that are not negotiable. If we still lived where we used to live, when we first got here, we rented a house here. If we still lived in that house, a car would be a lot less of a necessary item because the bus stop and the taxi stand were just directly across the road from where we live. We just walk out of the house, exit the gate, cross the road, and there we were. We can get anywhere cheaply. Here, it's like a 3-block walk down rutted dirt roads to get anywhere near the taxi stand or the bus. And I'm just not doing that. I'm too old now for that crap. That's what my uncle said. I work too damn hard to give you my money. We're going to have fun before we die. Exactly. So that's really kind of how you have to live your life, I think, in a lot of ways. Once your kids are raised and they're out of the house, you might as well do things you enjoy doing and stop scrimping for every silly dime, even if you can, because I have girlfriends that can't that are in that. And when you have 50 trillion kids like so many of my friends do, it costs a lot to raise them. So that's what I've also been wondering about on the Duggars now is the show's not on anymore. Jim Bob Duggar is no longer collecting his, $40,000 an episode or whatever he was getting per episode. That big house, that tin mansion costs a fortune to heat and cool. So who knows what's going to happen to them. I predict at some point they're going to have to sell off that property and move off into a smaller place, which would possibly be absolutely appropriate if you don't have everybody at home any longer. My parents were trying to save everything for us. Finally, I told them I have my own money. I'd rather see them have fun than profit from them later. Now they enjoy it, thankfully. That Amber chick, that's awesome. I told my mother the very similar thing. I said, spend your money. Don't worry about leaving anything. I have plenty of everything. So she asked me recently too. And I had a conversation with my daughters because we're going to be the ones getting everything. And they said, what do you want? And I said, I want the garnet necklace I gave her because the garnet is probably this big. It's huge. And I would like to have her antique maple dining room table if that's possible. But that's it. That's literally it. Everything else, you guys figure out what you want to do it with the stuff and move on. And that's, the thing with Jim Bob and all these Quiverfull families is when they do hit retirement age, a lot of times none of them can afford to retire. The guy that we've been having so much problems with lately, who's the ex-pastor, Dave, I think Dave is in the same predicament as my friend Bruce Garenzer is. They were pastors for some years, and they didn't pay into FICA, the federal, the thing that everybody pays into so that they can collect Social Security. They didn't pay Social Security or any of those things. As a pastor, you're allowed to skip that because some religions actually have their own retirement systems for their pastors. The sad thing is neither of them were part of that. So they're not paying any kind of taxes on the money they're making. And you get to retirement age and there's nothing there, or there's very little there because you've only worked a few jobs where you've paid into it. And that's a real problem in Quiverfull too, especially if you have people that are living off the grid who are doing as much stuff as they can for themselves and they're just not paying in. With Duggars, would have been legally obligated. Would he be legally obligated to get money from the TLC show Was He 18? Christoph Fanny would think so, right? No. And I had to look this up and research this one time for NLQ. Unless they've changed the laws in Arkansas, which I doubt they have, because Arkansas is deep south and they just don't have quite the same protections for folks who are more vulnerable than a lot of places. Arkansas, the way that they work their child labor law is there's no Jackie Coogan law in place. Now, when June Shannon filmed Here Comes Honey Boo Boo, apparently in Georgia, the Coogan law is a thing. And TLC forced June Shannon to open up bank accounts for all of her minor children and put the money in that, a portion of what they were paid to do the filming. Arkansas does not have that. They're not obligated to do that. Jim Bob Duggar got around the few lousy child labor laws that they had in that state by declaring the children volunteers on the show. Volunteers have even less rights than actual employees or child performers. Reality TV has really opened up some strange legal consequences for a lot of these people. Now, I know Derek Dillard said that he became an attorney so that he could rectify financial wrongs by Jim Bob and others. And I can see where he'd want to do that. So June was forced. Yeah. She was saving for them because they made her save for them. Amber, Chick, I think that the future is not going to play out well for that family or any of those kids. Those kids were homeschooled using those silly IBLP wisdom booklets. You know which ones I'm talking about. And so they're rather uneducated because those booklets are not, the science in them is not scientific. There's no real science in there. And they're lacking in a lot of the skill set that a normal person would have. Now, some of them seem like they have some skills. Like I'm thinking John David and a couple others that have pilot's licenses. Perhaps small airplane flight instructor. That seems to be something that he has done and done well. And while I would have said, well, I don't know what kind of skills he's got, he had a crash landing of one of their airplanes and they all walked away. And that takes some skill. I'm not saying it can't be done. I watched one of the videos by 7-4 crew the other day where he had a video of a lady that was flying solo for like her second or third time. And the flight instructor and the air traffic controller talked her down and she landed safely and everything was okay. She wasn't hurt at all after one of the landing gear fell off. So she landed instead of on the 3 tires on the 2 and she did fine. Kimmy Gessler's sock account. The other thing about Maria is she could also be a sock account of someone I know that has piles of sock accounts that is a Quiverfull wannabe cultural enforcer that follows the transformed wife and harasses anybody that speaks out in any way, shape, or form. A good landing is one in which everyone walks away. A great landing is when the plane is okay too. Well, you can't say that either one of those were great landings in because they're both of them needed some work. But John David got them on the ground, and that's pretty amazing with no injuries. Kimmy Gessler. I'm going to have to research this chick. I don't know who that is unless it's somebody that is commented and no longer quivering, which it could well be. But like I said, I played even less there. Somebody come there and block. So there we go. So I think at least John David could probably be a decent flight instructor. Pray, were you following the lady who was the cultural enforcer that was divorced and had a small child and was refusing to work and staying with her parents and insisting her parents support her? That lady was cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. And she was always promoting the most rabid, rigid, quiverful ideas. And I don't even think her parents were quiverful at all. And eager to get married. It was just not going to happen for her. She was not going to get married. She talked about it a lot. She asked very specifically for advice and having courtships with these different people. And Once you get on the wrong side of 30 in that society, you are gonna have all kinds of problems. There's just no way around it, unfortunately. And that's the other thing I wanted to say about all these quiverful enforcers or evangelical enforcers, whatever you want to call them. Every year, there are people that try to climb Mount Enforcer, try to get to the top to be the newest enforcers. And people like Nancy Campbell and Lori Alexander have enforcers just champing at the bit, trying to knock them off the hill so they can take over their position. It seems to be everybody wants to tell everybody else what to do. And frankly, I think that's kind of boring. Um, can people learn and use some guidance? Sure, everybody can. I know I can. Does it need to be Hitlerian? Hitlerian, is that a word? Does it need to be Hitler-like and massive screeching and hostile tones from the pulpit? No. The enforcers are worse than the heads themselves in a lot of ways. Yeah, some of them are so rabid, it's scary. I've seen crazy things happen when some of the internet enforcers try to go real life on people. Insane. And I don't know what it takes to make someone back off. There was one that came along a few years ago, well, more than a few years ago, maybe 4 years ago, who was promoting the Christian identity, the European identity thing, the borderline racism stuff that was going on. She was pushing that, and she was a former Wiccan who had turned around and become Christian. And they were having her speak at like Make Women Great Again conference. They had her book to speak at the Charlottesville rally. All kinds of just really horrible stuff. And she was pushing a white identity, Christian, quiverful narrative. And saying that if you weren't having white babies to increase the white Christian population, that you could not call yourself a Christian. She was pretty awful, but she started getting death threats, and that stopped her pretty much. Oh, the 22, yeah, 22 Make Women Great Again thing. Yes, that's exactly right. You need to protect yourself in these YouTube streets. Celine, that is the cool thing about having moved here. There's no such thing as addresses here. Nobody has an address. You just say, hey, I'm so many meters from this thing. It's more popular, and you can figure out kind of sort of where people are. And that is what is really comical when guys say, I'll give my supporter who flogs this woman and shuts her down X amount of dollars to go to Costa Rica. I'm laughing and going, how are you going to find me in one of the 10 million little villages that surround Tamarindo? You're going to have a hard time finding my house. Kimmy is a bitter psycho loser who admits she hates everyone because she can't expel more crotch fruit. Ooh. Aside from making note of her for the danger she is, don't take her vitriol seriously, Celine. Yes, you absolutely have to do that. The one I'm talking about is Ayla Stewart. And Ayla wasn't even a real name. That was a name she gave herself at some point to sound more European. I believe I read that correctly. But Ayla left the internet after death threats galore because she was promoting a radical whites only kind of thing, while saying she wasn't a racist. It's funny how some women can be enforcers and police a group, but other women can't. Oh, crotch fruit. Yeah, you know something? That is a term that Katie Joy has used as far as the Duggars and some of the other Quiverfull. And it's comedy in a lot of ways, but when you use it to describe stuff like the Duggars, it's kind of disrespectful. The lesson is don't take psychos seriously. They both sound cray. They were cray. They're both cray, I think, from everything you're saying. And I think to be a female cultural enforcer in this culture, you almost have to be a little bit not quite normal. I'm just going to go out and say maybe you're not insane in the membrane by standards of Western society, but you ain't normal either. I mean, just look at that. Hey, Carol. Celine, some people are using the phrase crotch fruit to describe children. When people in Quiverfull have these huge amounts of children, some people will say that. Aunt Lydia is the literary equivalent. Exactly, she is. So many of these female cultural enforcers in Quiverfull could play Aunt Lydia to a T because that's how they're thinking. And we all know what a mean bee Lydia is in the show The Handmaid's Tale. She's not a very nice person. And I gotta say, I enjoyed the episode where they showed how she got from liberal teacher to cultural enforcer. It was pretty mind-boggling, but it was good to see how she got there. Programming, yes. Even a black woman I listen to who talks about how feminism hurt the black community. She even said women who are young aren't strong enough to go against social programming. Celine, that's true. And the thing is, the social programming thing is so pervasive and so evil. I was talking about that the other day with a girlfriend of mine who said, we're both old crones now. So we're pretty much completely devoid of being part of the whole social programming thing. And we both said if we knew what we knew now when we were young, we would have avoided a whole lot of trouble. I thought about writing a book about male-female relationships. Not because I'm any great shakes at it. I still struggle sometimes to not go off the deep end at some guys. But when I was working at the residential treatment center, I would talk to so many of these young women that were working there that had no idea about men, and they would get used again and again and again. And I would try to explain, hey, don't do that. And they were like, but I have to. The weirdest one was one day we were all working in the auditing office, going through documents to make sure the treatments were good. And, oh, Carol, that's good that you joined the Navy. One of the young ladies came rushing in and said, quick, how do I give a BJ? So I'm working with these other ladies, and here I am. I'm in my 50s. They're probably like in their late 30s. We all kind of looked at each other. We looked at her, and of course, I said, why do you want to know that? And it was programming. It's ridiculous programming stuff is the reason that she wanted to know it. She said that she had to learn how to do a BJ. So the guy she was dating, so she could make sure that he did not leave her and that he loved her and he didn't have sex with his ex, because the ex had his child, his toddler, and she was afraid he was going to leave her for the ex. But because she was a good Christian girl now and she was re-virginized, she couldn't go all the way. So she had to bind him to her using the almighty BJ. And I tried not to laugh, and I kept asking her questions and trying to get her to see that this was a really ridiculous way to hang on to a man, that any man you had to use that to kind of tactic on to manipulate him to stay with you was not worth having. Celine, that's good that you're taking it slowly. Interaction with the opposite gender for a long time. Yeah, that's a problem sometimes. Yeah, this girl, and the thing is, this girl was kind of mentally stuck, I guess, about the age of 15 or 16 years old. She had had substance abuse issues for years and years and years and years, apparently, and was 27 and was very, very naive in a lot of ways about men and different things. Yeah, re-virginized. They had some kind of ceremony in her church where they prayed over her and laid hands on her and declared all that former sexual activity as completely wiped away. Send him on his way. Absolutely, absolutely. And one girl that I worked with, I dearly loved her. She had a boyfriend that wouldn't work. He had various girlfriends that were all supporting him, including her. She was working full time to support him. And he'd hang around the 7-Eleven all day. And I would start asking her questions. Why are you with this guy? Almost 70 years. How can you do that? I don't know. But they apparently at her church, they had a thing where they had a ritual that they dealt with to re-virginize you. I kind of laughed over that one. It's kind of like putting the cow back in the barn after it's run off. It's ridiculous. So many of the young ladies there, and not just the very Christian ones like the first one I was talking about, wanting how to do the BJ. So many of the ladies there had these really not very good relationships. So anytime they come in my office and gripe to me about their men problems, I would do what I do to fundamentalist Christians who come at me and say, you are an apostate. I start asking them questions. So I found even then, if you asked enough questions, eventually you get them to start thinking, well, maybe this guy is not the end all be all. Maybe I'm approaching this wrong. Maybe I should think about this. And it's part of the cultural conditioning. I think that the whole patriarchal thing that is so pervasive in American society has primed women to accept the most unacceptable behavior as normal and to put up with a whole lot. If you don't believe that, just go into Reddit and read, Am I the A-hole? Or the relationship threads. And you will see some of the most just out there things happening, or at least they're claiming it's happening. And you're like, why are you doing that? Why are you doing that? Why are you putting up with that? And you were talking earlier, Celine, about a woman that was giving you grief about all sorts of things online. And I know that, Bliss, you were talking about someone imitating you. That stuff is so prevalent online before you even add in the awfulness of fundamentalist Christianity. I mean, I'm watching this on Twitter right now in the anti-KJ Pitchfork Nation. That's why I said the other day that Todd Paulson actually has a point about some of the women that are going after his wife. People are making up all kinds of rumors about each other, starting their fights. They're all kinds of pick a side. Well, guess what? I don't do sides. I do individuals. And if you got a problem with that, you should probably just block me and move on, because that's how I am. I'm not about to change as old as I am now for any of that. So it is ridiculous, because one of them said, well, I am unsubscribing from you. And I said, please do. And then I had to say, which one of your 4 fake profiles will you be using to unsubscribe from me? I just had to throw a little shade. Even as a good girl, I was treated the same way as a fast girl. So you can't win either way with a lot of these fundamentalist claims. If it doesn't mean anything, you're treated the same. It doesn't mean anything, you're treated the same way. It's true. And they will do that. Like I said yesterday, I was talking about my lay girlfriend that went to the casino with me. We were away from the eyes of the church. So many times I've known people that just crack up because they can't take the pressure and just go the other way. I know so many in my old church that actually would do things like have like a lost weekend for 6 months. They golf the deep end and do all the bad stuff. And I got to say, I understand that. I fully understand that when there's all this pressure on you to be perfect, for perfection, and there's tight gender roles, they don't fit anybody very well. You got all these weak, wimpy guys that aren't very sure about their masculinity that make tighter and tighter rules for women and say, okay, can't wear this, can't do that, can't blah, blah. It's like, no, I'm going to drive that go-kart. I'm going to drink tequila if I feel like doing it. I'm going to climb that volcano, and there's nothing these guys can do to stop me. But when I was back in the old church, they had a lot of power to stop you, at least right up until the time where nobody could see you. I told my husband the first time we came to Costa Rica, and we'd been out of church maybe about 8 or 9 years at that point, out of that old church. I got a massage at the Green Lagoon Health Resort we used to go to. It's now been renamed the Arno Falls Inn, which is actually a beautiful place. Their spa is built on the side of a dead volcano. So here I am, post fundamentalism, outside on the side of a volcano, buck ass naked, drinking a drink made out of the local rum, which is called guaro, and fresh fruit drinks. I have this like 3-foot long straw. I'm laying face down on the massage table. I'm boozing. I'm getting rubbed. I'm totally naked. It's outside, sunshine. I turned to my husband and said, you know, if anybody could see me from the old church right now, they would say, girl, you are going to hell. Guess what? And I said, I don't care. I know single ladies despairing of finding a decent, hard-working guy. I had to retire early. Thank God for pension plans. FICA and my 401k. Screw the patriarchy. Kathleen Benjamin, you are right. Screw the patriarchy. The patriarchy is the most toxic thing on the planet. It was amazing. They would say that. And the thing is, I wasn't doing anything wrong. I was having one drink and I was getting massaged and I was outside at a volcano with no clothes on. But nobody was watching. I wasn't in a place where anybody was liable to see me. And it's hard to get the kind of massage that I was getting, which was a hard medical massage with your clothes on. They coat you with all the oil, and this woman worked me over. She pummeled me so good. It was like, oh my gosh, I have feeling in my hands again. It was one of those type of massages. And she was a teeny tiny, cute little Costa Rican woman. And she walked on my back, and it was fabulous. My back was a lot better, a lot better. But because Quiverfull has these very, very, very tight, constrictive rules that don't suit anybody, you're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to have opinions. You're not allowed to express them. You're not allowed to have passions. You're not allowed to do anything that would benefit your health. You're not allowed to have me days. It's none of that. I prefer listening to Black women who are on the feminine journey more than white women because they help you instead of pull you up by your bootstraps. So, I'm going to have to start Googling some of these people and taking a look myself. My mother kept volunteering me every time the seminary sent a busload of ministerial students to the church to date one of them. They would ask from the pulpit. I said, not me. Oh, Carol, that would be terrible. I can't imagine anything worse. Even though I've known some really cool pastors and ministers in my time, none of them were young. I don't think that youth necessarily lends itself to the greatest of anything. So anyway, I'm going to go. I got to go clean the kitchen before we go look at new cars. That never ends, unfortunately. And I'm super excited about getting a new car. I'm super excited because last night I went on Zenny Optical and I ordered my new glasses because for the last year I've just been rolling around with one pair and I don't like it much. I'm really excited. I got blue cat eyes with rhinestones on them. Identical, well, not identical, but very close to the first glasses I ever had. So I'm finding fun stuff to do. And that's what I wanted to say about leaving Quiverfull, leaving these fundamentalist type religions. There is fun on the other side. There are choices. When you get as old as I am, it's kind of like, why not enjoy yourself? Everyone have a great afternoon, and I'll see you later.